Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we always think of consciousness as this profound mystery, right? Something totally beyond measurement. But what if it wasn't? What if the stability of your own mind could be boiled down to a single score? Well, today, we're looking at a theory that tries to do exactly that.
Yeah, for literally centuries, this has been a question for philosophers, a puzzle about our own subjective experience. But we're going to look at a totally new angle today. What if the answer wasn't just philosophical, but mathematical? There's one theory out there that proposes just that.
All right, so let's dive into it. The theory is called consciousness relativity theory, or CRT for short. Now, it asks us to think about the mind in a new way, not as some static thing, but as this dynamic, relativistic field of awareness. Kind of like how gravity can warp space and time, CRT proposes that informational stress, all the stuff we deal with every day, can cause our conscious field to stretch or even collapse.
So, at the very heart of CRT is this one specific calculation, the CRT score. Really, you can just think of it as a recoverability score for your mind. It's a single number that's designed to tell us how potent, how resilient a conscious state is against that constant barrage of information and stress.
Okay, so how on earth do you calculate something like that? Let's actually build this equation, piece by piece. We'll start with the parts that represent the subjective self. The formula's attempt to capture the strength of that internal observer, the you inside. So, the first bit of the formula is super simple. It's just A plus S. In this term, it represents the total magnitude, the sheer presence of the observer's subjective self. It's the foundation, and it's built from two key ingredients. First up is A for awareness. I love this analogy. Imagine it's like your brain's own personal volume knob. It's a metacognitive gain dial that can amplify all those neural signals, turning the intensity of your experience up from just a faint whisper into a really vibrant, full-blown reality. And then to that, we add S for separation. This is all about the strength of the boundary between yourself and everything else. It's that fundamental feeling of being an I on the inside, looking out at a world that is, well, not you. So a strong S means you have a really well-defined sense of self. But, just having a self, that's not enough. A conscious mind is constantly being flooded with information from all over the place, and it has to bind all of that stuff together into a single, unified, continuous experience. So now we take that subjective self, the A plus S, and we multiply it by a term for integration. Now, the formula uses a logarithm here, which is just a clever mathematical way of saying that the quality of how information is connected matters a whole lot more than the sheer quantity. You get diminishing returns just by piling on more data. What really counts is how well it's all woven together into a coherent story.
Right, and that I stands for integration. This is the process that's constantly stitching together all your moments, your memories, your perceptions into a coherent whole. It's what gives your conscious stream what the theory calls its temporal thickness, which is what makes reality feel smooth and continuous, and not like you're watching a chaotic slideshow of unrelated snapshots.
Okay, so we have the forces that build consciousness up, a strong sense of self, integrated and aware. But this whole delicate state is constantly under attack. There's this powerful opposing force, that universal tendency towards disorder and chaos. You might know it as entropy.
And this brings us to the complete formula. Look at that. Everything we've just built, the aware, separate, integrated self, that all forms the numerator, the top part of the fraction. And this is then divided by E. And E here stands for entropy, that force of disorder we were just talking about.
Yeah, just think of entropy as all the mental noise, the distractions, that cognitive static that's always trying to tear your coherent experience apart. It's all the internal and external chaos that makes it hard to focus. It's the constant enemy of a clear, stable, conscious mind.
So there you have it, the complete formula. It's really a balance, isn't it? It's the constructive forces of awareness and integration on top versus the destructive force of entropy on the bottom. But what does this score actually tell us about the stability of a mind?
Well, the theory describes two totally opposite outcomes. If you have a low score, where entropy is just overwhelming the system, you get this fragile state that's prone to what's called an unrecoverable collapse of consciousness. But on the other hand, if you get a high score, where awareness, separation, and integration are really strong, that signifies a highly resilient state, a mind that can handle stress and keep its coherence.
Now, here's what's really fascinating. This isn't just some philosophical thought experiment. This exact formula was actually discovered and validated by a machine learning system that was analyzing data on consciousness. And the result? It turned out to be an incredibly accurate model. It matched the data with over 93% precision.
That suggests this formula isn't just an elegant idea, it seems to be robustly describing something real about how consciousness actually works.
And this whole idea of measuring the mind's components, it fits perfectly into the broader scientific context. A lot of modern theories view the mind not as this single monolithic thing, but more like a team of specialized modules that all have to work together. Modules for memory, for decision-making. You can think of the COT score as a way to quantify how well that team is coordinating. When the score is high, the modules are in sync. When it's low, that coordination is starting to break down.
So, why does any of this matter? Well, because the CRT score is way more than just a clever equation. It offers a potential blueprint for measuring the resilience of any mind, whether it's biological or artificial. It could help us design more robust AI, it could serve as a diagnostic tool for neurological disorders, and it really starts to bridge that immense gap between the mechanics of the brain and the subjective feel of being alive.
And that leaves us with one last, really provocative question. If a core aspect of consciousness, its stability, can actually be captured in a number, what does that imply? I mean, if we can measure it, can we then optimize it, enhance it, and ultimately engineer it? This theory suggests the answer might just be yes, and the work, it begins right here.